Okay, so at this point also, I'm gonna start recording for the rest of the view. We already have that first part session recorded in some of our previous sessions. So if you now have any questions or comments, feel free to write them down here. Okay. If there are no questions, or probably I'll take also my break and get some water to drink. And take time to run it. Oh, before I forget, I hope someone would um, be able to just chat. Maybe um, runs this or completes this first, just for fun. No, I don't have any prize prepared, but I'll probably remember you being the first guy to complete this in Drupal Camp 2020. So, yes, guys, just okay. Um, is there anyone here who can say that they've finished? Maybe I'm gonna clear all the participant responses. Just hit yes um, in the participant view here. So in Zoom, if you open up the participant list, I think you have a button where you can click yes for this. So if you click yes, I'm gonna click yes because I've done it here. You guys try it also. Okay. So last minute for guys trying it out. Usually, if you were doing this on a room, I'll be roaming around checking your laptops and computer. Probably someone's already raising his or her hand trying to ask something. I kind of missed that now. Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Done with the local demo mommy. So, care to share, Jeffrey, if what did you use? Did you use the Dev Lando, Dev Desktop, or any other tool? Yep. Yeah. So, Jeffrey, can you share if what tool did you use to set up your local demo mommy? Okay. Okay, I'm not sure if you're hearing me or you're just muted. Oh, no. Okay, no problem. You can just type it in chat if you have problems with unmuting. Or maybe I'll. Okay. Oh, the Quickstart script. Okay. That can't see anything here. Okay. Yeah, you probably did the Quickstart script. I suggest maybe trying around. Make sure you still have the local command line running. So if I click this one, so for those who may have encountered the same issue where the local Quickstart script is no longer running. So here I have it still running here. But if I close this command line here, oh, I did not Control C. I did not press Control C. So if you actually close down the, oh, there you go. So if you actually close down the command line where you run the script, that terminates actually the PHP web server, so you probably don't see it. So if make sure you just run the script again, you can rerun it by going to your folder. So go Drupal and to reopen it, there you go. You can see that it's gonna run again. Okay, if you don't see it, hopefully that's just how to fix that, or that's the only thing what went wrong for Jeffrey. Congrats to Eman, for running this. Okay, awesome. So thanks everyone for trying it. And for those who may have still some problems, don't worry, we still have time for later. And I will show more and give more chances to run Drupal per installation. For now, let's get back to our presentation in the workshop. Okay. So if you have successfully installed Drupal, you should see this screen, just like this one. Okay. If you have renamed it just like I do, you see something like this, and that's all you need to do. Now, before I move forward, I need more help from you guys. Okay. So I want um, to give more context to the demo that I'll be doing for the rest of the afternoon. Can someone help me, or can we do a poll on what maybe what kind of website we'll do? And you, oh no, that's not add a poll here now. It's probably not gonna take time, but maybe just type in your answer here. We're gonna do a quick count. Maybe what kind of website we're gonna do today? It's gonna be a janitorial services company, public museum, or I don't know. Maybe everyone is doing like a COVID response website. If you want that, or if that's too much of COVID already for everyone, can someone maybe suggest or just come up with a vote on what kind of website we'd like to do today? So I picked these two randomly before we started the presentation earlier. But if you have some suggestions, just type it in chat, please. This is just to provide some context on what kind of website are we gonna build using Drupal. And it's gonna help me to define maybe some fields or some more information on what we add to the site or what kind of dummy content we can site. Okay. Okay. Anyone here? Maybe you can just write down in chat their vote. Okay. If none, wait. Someone said bake shop. Okay. So bake shop. We have one bake shop here. I'm still gonna write down bake shop here. Anyone else? Okay, I think I like the bake shop, right? So Wendell, thanks for suggesting that. It's really nice. So I'm gonna choose bake shop. So I'm gonna write and create a bake shop site, right? So what we'll do is maybe let's find a bake shop um, um, company here, maybe, or a bake shop website. Okay, here I have one. I have Julie's Bake Shop. Okay, so for those who are not in in Manila or in the Philippines, so basically what showed up here are the most famous bake shops. Julie's Bake Shop is a community bake shop, a lot of branches for every corner. This is probably a nice thing to do. Okay, we'll probably use something like a Julie's Bake Shop. I see here Connie's Bake Shop, but it's more of like a restaurant, I think. So probably choose Julie's Bake Shop for some reference. Okay, so if folks here, um, this is just me trying to decide on something, trying to ask help with a fellow to decide on something. But if you want to do your own, you have already an idea, you need to build a site for your friend or your company or your blog, maybe you can do so. You can follow the steps here. But I just want to present here using already a context that's something we decided on the start. Okay, so you can definitely do your own thing while we're following the guide here. So someone said, so bookstore, you can do a furniture shop. You can definitely do all these. Um, this is just for me being able to come up with a context of what I would maybe try to build with. Okay, so bake shop. I'm gonna do a bake shop. Yay! So if we were probably in the future, um, we'll make a bake shop business out of it. Okay, so the next part of our workshop is for the content management. This is where we actually gonna spend a lot of time. Um, so you have probably seen Drupal is a content management system, and a lot of folks probably haven't seen really the real meaning behind that. Or for me, at least, when I was starting doing web development, I always thought that anything is content. A picture, a page, that's that's probably right. Anything that you put up in a website is content. And if you're gonna do a website, if you're gonna make a new one or do something new, that's basically managing your website. But I learned that with Drupal, it's actually more than that. Managing content is not just about editing pages. It's about really coming up with a complete set of tools of anything that you want to do with your site, controlling the people who want to use your site, controlling the people who can view your site, and everything that you could think of that relates to your business. It's not just about what you see, but also how you make things happen in your site. Okay. So I'm gonna start with that and gonna show you a bit of terminologies with Drupal. Okay. So at its core, Drupal, as we call it core. It's the source. It's the actual software itself. It's the base Drupal software. We use the word core to call that. And Drupal core is a collection of modules, and it's defined to be as something that you add your site to give some kind of functionality. And this functionality can be super small or could be super big. It could be as small as just making your site change color or something, or maybe put a sticky navigation in your site, or something as big as a module that makes your site e-commerce ready. So we define modules as something small as that, or something as big as a full feature set. And as you build your site and as you build your content, we actually separate what they call themes or theming, where everything that you build for Drupal is something that you could change the look and feel purely with the um, tools for designing look and feel with using CSS, maybe a bit of JavaScript for animations, and strict to that. I know some folks are gonna call, I'm gonna use themes, but we're gonna do maybe some front end development. It's actually more than that when it comes to front end development at nowadays. When we call about or we talk about front end development in Drupal, I'd like to call theme as something that just to really paint your site, okay, to put some styling to it, and that comes with design, colors, the UI, UX um, part of your site, right? And I'm gonna insert something here called distributions, where some folks may have already built several functionalities and also several themes that maybe fit a certain use case. And a different set of distributions is basically a collection of modules and themes that are pieced together to actually come up with a very specific form of site. It could be an e-commerce site, it could be a news publishing site, or even a social media platform. In Drupal, you can actually make your own Facebook. Sometime later in the presentation, I'll show you how we can make our own Facebook using Drupal. Okay. So these are the things to put in mind about the core concepts behind Drupal. This is quite similar for every content management out there. The next, I guess, difference is the terms about the content. Okay. So in Drupal, every piece of content is stored as node. We call it. Later on, you'll see if you create pages, articles, you'd see the node URL or the path being added. You can see content types. And content type is basically how we call these nodes. If you create a page, it's called a page. If you call a blog post, it's called post or an article. You can create content types like events. You can create content types like your portfolio. And later on, probably we'll start to create content type like bread, because we're gonna do a bake shop in a while. And these are things that we can create in Drupal by default. And if you have content type, you can customize your content type by defining fields that adds metadata to your site, or even extra content that paired into your site. So if you have an article, you probably have a field for the title, you have a field for the body, you have a field for images, and you can insert more fields that you like if you want to customize your content more, including your custom ones. Okay. There's another term I'd like to add before I start running this, what I call blocks. And blocks is also a kind of content, but it's sort of just a piece of content that we just usually add on sections of site. You add them into certain regions of your site. It could be part of your header. It could be part of your sidebar. It could be part of your footer. It could be maybe something of an insert above your main content page or at the bottom of your content page. Imagine it as mini sections of your site that you can insert anywhere with your page structure or your layout. Now, the next thing here is taxonomy. And a bunch of blogging tool may be calling this as categories or tags. Other platforms may be calling this simply a vocabulary of terms. In Drupal, we see that as taxonomy. And For last thing that I want to share is views, where if you create a bunch of nodes, maybe a bunch of taxonomies, a bunch of blocks, you'd be able to come up with a page or section where these content are grouped together, controlled or filtered in lists. And for developers here, this may be something familiar to you as like a loop, where maybe you have a blog page where you want to loop all the latest articles that were created. On the sidebar, you may want to put some related or suggested articles. And in your footer, you may want to put maybe things like a gallery of images and so on. Okay. And these concepts and terms are used among the different categories of roles when running or doing management in the website. So I'd just like to let you see these terms here that we pieced in together from Drupal.org. There's someone that's called site builder, where they create these content. Basically, these are the guys who come up with your content strategy or architecture, information architecture rather. They decide what content should be applied to your site and how you may be able to present them using your fields that you created. And the next after site builders are what we call themers in Drupal, where after you created all these nice content and structure, you put a dash of paint over it and make it look nice and presentable with UI and UX. And for folks who are doing site building and theming, they would probably need tools that would help automate what they want to achieve. That's why people are doing code or they are coding modules to probably automate things that they want to do and be able to add features on the site. And there's another person who probably tries to do what we call nowadays DevOps, who run your backend infrastructure, or your ITO probably to run your servers. And across all these, you have someone who actually manages your site, who logs in, who activates features, who writes and motivates users and coming up with blog posts. Now, the last two things here is basically coming up with your management and strategy, which usually relates to your business. Or if you're just someone making your blog, you have to plan how you want to use your blog. And of course, the community where we can seek help. If you need some help about how to make a Drupal site, you can definitely do that. Okay? So I've posted here some really nice links on how you can see these work in action. And they'd be able to store this in mind about the concepts of what kind of role can I take in when I run a Drupal project. So some of you might be like a solo developer where you would probably run everything. You'd probably be the site builder, themer, and you also run your servers and do the site administration itself. That's fine. You can definitely do that in Drupal. But it's just good to know that these roles are identified properly in the Drupal world. And we have a number of ways to really study on how to become very specific and proficient on these roles. So that's something to really look forward to. There are roles out there that really call themselves site builders, themers, module developers. It's not just Drupal developer. So there are a lot of other roles there. So with that in mind, let's now see with those concepts, how can we actually do those things using Drupal? And the first thing to share is the admin interface tour. Okay. So if you have logged in, I've listed down these different menu sections, help, reports, and people. I'm gonna define and show you each section so to be familiar of where to look for things on how to do things here. But honestly, if you see the names here and also how it's presented in the admin dashboard, it actually gives you an idea of what they are for. So for example, content is probably self-explanatory. Structure, though, is something like defining content types and making other extra taxonomies that would help you group and organize your content better. Themes are probably in appearance, extend is for your modules, and so on and so forth. So let's now dive into the Drupal admin interface. So this is what I've been showing you earlier. In the screenshot, though, I'm showing it as a sidebar. And if you may have tried it, you can actually click this button here where it moves the menu on the left side. If you're working on your site here, if you're more familiar or comfortable on putting this on a sidebar, you can do it as this. And can be able to navigate here with the available submenu. Okay. So the way I'm gonna do this tour is I'm gonna do it backwards so that when we go back to content, we go directly to the next topic, which is how to create content. So bear with me. So help, as it suggests, as the term suggests, Drupal has some built-in documentation on how to run things. Okay. There are a number of available tools, and our module developers are continuously trying to add this section or fill out this section, so to be really helpful. And what you can see here are basically all the modules that are part of Drupal that makes it work together and piece together. You can take time to read this and be able to price and concept. I will not check this one by one. I'm just going to show you this. Take time to read this once you try to run your site on your own. Probably you'd want to look at this section first, maybe before trying to like do a Google search or whatever you're trying to do. Okay, so the next section here is for administrators who want to look at some reports that by default Drupal offers. Things like log messages, like things that someone created a content entry, what are the available fields, and all the other tools that help a site administrator to check that. And let me just quickly show you this one section here called status report. And this gives you a lot of information about how your site is installed, Drupal version, the cron information, and all the other goodies that probably would help you identify if there's something wrong with your site or you need to update things. Okay, this gives you an idea of how your site is running. Okay. Moving back again is the next section called people. And this is also known as the user section, where you can actually define who are the users and use different permissions and roles for users. I could probably create a user here now. And to quickly show you, I'm gonna create this user, DC Manila user, okay? And you can define here their roles. There are only 2 predefined roles. Authenticated user, you can define a bunch of information for a user here. What's interesting in this section is if you've seen only 2 roles here, you can actually create more roles. And this is by default for Drupal. You can actually create roles. I'm gonna click add role here. And what it gives you is the power to come up with a very specific role for your site. So remember, we are trying to make a bake shop, okay? So probably the role appropriate for a website is maybe a, probably I wouldn't write a baker here right now, probably someone who sells or a salesperson probably, okay? Which is someone who could probably access things that they sell, or someone who would probably update promotions on their site, probably marketing stuff. So I've created a role and it's now here. You can edit the name if you want again later on. If you click the drop down button more, you can see the what you call the permission set. Okay, you can click edit permissions here. And in Drupal, if you want to build an application that helps you really define security on what a person can access only, very specific content or a number of things, you can see here that it has a way to granularly define that for you. So I'm not gonna show everything here now, but this is just for appreciation that this is something very, very useful if you're gonna build an application that is meant to divide users thoroughly. If you want to make a news website, you probably have a bunch of editors. You probably want to have a bunch of editors only for a specific set of categories. You want to have a super editor probably, and so that you can define them. And I'm amazed on how much granularity you can have here on the onset by default. It's really nice. A lot of things here can be done, including like making things available for public users or not. Right now, I'm just editing the permissions for salesperson. But if I go back to people, you can see that you can also have a matrix of all the roles in your site. And the default users I mentioned is anonymous user, authenticated, and administrator. So anonymous user is anyone that visits your site. Okay. And you can see here that we have predefined these tools. You can see here that obviously visitors should be able to view your content, view comments, use some forms, but you can see that it differs when it comes to authenticated users. Some folks can write content more better than anonymous users. This is all with the intention of giving security measures for the site. This is really, really great. Something that I really appreciate about Drupal. Some folks may think that this may be too much of you have to worry. Actually, you don't have to do anything here. Drupal already provided a common set of roles that you probably all need to do or you need to have. For me, probably a bunch of our sites, just anonymous, authenticated, and administrated. That's it. So for the most part, you probably just need 3. But for the appreciation of what Drupal has to offer, this is really nice to show that you can actually you actually have by default a very nice set of tools to do something as comprehensive as this or sophisticated as this. Okay, that's people section for admin. Okay, I'm gonna go back a bit now to configuration. Now, there's a lot of things to show in configuration, and I will not go them one by one. We probably end up spending until lunchtime to discuss all of these. But if you're gonna see the sections, they are divided accordingly to their context and use. You can define things like site name and which emails the site is receiving and contact details to, right? And if you want to edit this, I'm gonna call this now DC Bake Shop because we are now gonna do a bake shop. Fresh from the can. I'm gonna call this fresh from the can. And save that, and you'd probably see your site now updated with your thing or your title. Earlier, I showed you the number or the people add user feature where I had to add photos. I had to add additional uh, roles there. Here you can define how are you creating users. You can actually create a way where your customers or visitors can register. You can actually disable that on your own and the other things. If some of you have been trying it, something that we will cover a little bit later, you can see something here about managing fields, okay? And let me just quickly run this. If I was creating a user earlier, let me just open the people page on the side. Let me just run this again. I'm gonna click add user. And these are the default fields. And a little bit down here, there's a picture field, okay? You would notice that in Drupal, it's always available where you can add a field. And if you add a field, that gives you a way to actually um, add an extra kind of profile. Oops, sorry, I got distracted there. An extra field that adds more information about your user. So I've added here a location field. So I've saved that here. I'm gonna try and edit this and maybe add more details. I'm gonna discuss more of this later about adding custom fields here, but this is just for the appreciation of configuration of what you can do. So location, I'm gonna call this NCR, and then outside NCR, I'm gonna call this. And as quickly as that, in Drupal, I added fields on the fly. And here, my original add user section now has a new field called location, which I can add more info to my user. It's super nice. Okay. And all those people or users that I've added earlier now has that field too, and I can edit it, edit those users and update them. Okay, so super nice. That's under configuration. There's a lot more that you could probably do similar to this one to configure everything about your site. There are things here like how your file is stored, how search is running in your site, and even things like regional settings about how things work in terms of format of dates, format in terms of time zone, and other stuff. Okay. So I'm gonna skip the rest of those, and that's just meant for appreciating the part on be able to modify a number of things. You may ask some questions later during the break sessions on how to actually use or probably add some features that you're probably looking for. But that's configuration for now. Okay, stepping back, I'm going now to extend here. So as mentioned earlier, extend is where you manage modules added to your site, okay? And for everything that you can see here is the collection of modules that run Drupal. And while you can see a tab here that's called core, let me just clarify that everything here is part of core, what we call the Drupal software as core. If it's something that's part of that basic installation or the default download that you have in Drupal, that means it's core. So all these features here that you see, actions, book, and all these are actually part of Drupal on its core. And that means that these are modules that are battle tested, thoroughly reviewed, and beautifully coded by our contributors. And you would expect a higher quality of feature set here. And it's intended to be a base of all the future features or future modules that someone would be creating. And you would notice now that a bunch of the features here are not enabled by default. Now, that is defined when we use, remember earlier, we used the standard installation profile. If you have seen or probably picked by mistake minimal, you'd probably see a blank site. And it's not looking like this right now, as you see, where it's a little bit nicer. There's a section field for, or a search field here and so on. These are things that you actually need to activate. And this gives you an idea how Drupal works out of the box. Everything is modular. Everything can be run only if you need it. You can only activate what you need. You could probably try to like check everything and, play around with everything. You can definitely do that. It will still work and probably still work the same way as fast as it's running right now because of how much effort has been given to making these work together. But that's something that you want to think about so that as you add more features here, as you activate more features here, they probably show up in some additional menu here in the configuration, probably a new content type or structure. So let me try very quickly to activate some features here. So I'm gonna go here to this field type. Remember earlier I showed you in people where I added a bunch or a new set of fields. Okay, so some modules are simply there to add an extra field for your site. So I'm gonna activate two modules here, date, time, and range, which gives me an extra field now for adding to any content or user in the site. And I'm gonna save this now, gonna install it. And that's all you need to do to be able to run that. Now, to make that make more sense, I'm gonna go back to that configuration setting I showed earlier. If you remember, I've added a field for a user. It's found in configuration, people, account settings, and manage fields. So this is meant for managing account fields or user fields. So now I'm gonna click add field. And you may have not seen this earlier, but now there's a telephone number field here. And there's now a new date range field here. Now, because we are going to do a bake shop, I'm now thinking what makes sense to put here. So being probably a salesperson, I want to add a telephone number for a person because, well, the boss probably needs the mobile number of that person. So I'm going to add mobile here. And you can define how many mobile numbers a user may have. Probably you just need 3, I guess. That's maximum. Or maybe you can set unlimited. Maybe he has like 1,000 phones. I don't know. I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna see what will happen later on in the field here. You can see now you can add multiple values for that specific field. I'm gonna save this. And probably to test that date range field, thinking about the bake shop now, probably want to use date range to maybe say his shift, right? Maybe if that makes sense. So store shift, maybe I'm gonna call this store shift for the user. I'm gonna click store shift. Store shift is maybe what hours the person's gonna work to the site. So you can define date and time. And we can define multiple values for a single value. And this now lets you define a date. This may not be the right way of using date range, but this is just to demo that I activated a module and then it became available to a part of Drupal. So to see that now in action, I've added fields, I've activated modules, I've used the module and added fields. And to see them in action, as quickly as that, I'm gonna go back to my user, click DC Manila user, click edit. And here I was able to see now my fields here. I'll put a number, add another item. And in the store shift, you can select a date. I'm gonna say 26 or 20, and then time. This is probably not the right kind of field because it has a date here. Store shift, you probably just need the time field, right? So I probably need to edit this again because if it's shift, you just need to have the time section there. But I'm gonna deal with that later on. And that's that. I was able to add field very quickly. Some fields that were not available earlier when I was using the add field option. And this is really nice to use. Really helpful for running this. Probably I can no longer change this because I've added now an entry. But we will deal with that later on. So that's extend or the module section. You will definitely enjoy testing the default modules. Just like this one, there's a feature called forum. If you want to make your own forum, your site, there's also a feature called book, where you can create probably documentation kind of websites and other things here that we will activate later on as we go into the demo. Okay. But for now, I'll leave it to this part, okay? Activating those additional fields for user. And that's the extend or module section. Okay, so the next part going up is appearance or the theme section. By default, Drupal has a couple of themes installed. And you can see here, there are two themes that are actually running. One is Bartik. That's the default Drupal theme, probably for so many years now. And then there's what we call 7, or the administration theme. Now, in Drupal, you actually define using appearances or themes how it would look like for visitors and as well as your administrators or editors, which is really useful. If someone wants to edit with no distraction, probably you want to have a plain theme, just like how this 7 theme looks like. But this is something you can override in Drupal. So here, at a little bit down here, there's a section called administration theme. You can actually define which theme you'd like to use. And in this case, I said, I want to use the default theme. It means that whatever I use as default, it will just simply follow. If I save this, if you remember the look and feel of our sandbox site that we created, as simple as that, you can actually see now that I'm now running my site using the same theme. Okay. So this is probably something that you may want, but personally, I think this is one thing good about Drupal where you can theme your administration setting, because if you want to have a clutter-free kind of experience on managing your site, everything that you've added in your visitors view probably is not that useful for administrators. You just want to get to straight to it to edit a section. You have a layout of what you need. You don't want to put your ads in here. You just want to see and have a look of what you have inside your site. So in Drupal, it's something that you can actually run and set and switch with a couple of clicks. There's a number of themes that you may have seen as I was scrolling down that's not actually running. It's called uninstalled themes. And uninstalled means it's not active, it's not running to your site, but it's actually in there. It's actually part of your code. It's the files to make these theme run, the CSS files and all the template files are in there. But just right now, these themes are just not running at all. I may want to use this other theme as maybe my administration theme. It calls it Claro, where a clean, accessible, powerful Drupal administration theme. So let's try that. If I click install and set as default, what it will run is it will change now my homepage or my visitors view, right? So because we selected default, while this looked like the default or the theme for that I want for my administration setting, it looks cleaner now for my backend. But if I look at my homepage, it now looks the same as my administration page. So that's one thing to look at, that in Drupal, you can actually set something as a default, which is something defined as what looks, what the site looks like for your visitors, or what you intend to look for your visitors. And the difference for you to set is set the setting for default and set something separate for administration theme. Okay. I'm gonna set Claro here. But if you feel that maybe if you want to edit some content directly with how the website looks like, you can actually do so. So here I can uncheck this administration theme here. And a little bit later, we'll go back to this one and see that if I want to go edit some new content, just gonna do a very quick run of how does this work. Instead of running it using the administration theme that I have right now, so I've reverted this now to Bardic. I go to content. If I press add content, I actually have a view here now. I'm actually using the view that's intended for my viewers or visitors. That may be relevant or that may make sense to you depending on how you build your site. Maybe this makes sense if your contributors are your visitors, maybe. Maybe it's really meant for guest bloggers or something. Or maybe it's just a site where people can submit inquiries or forms, or maybe it's a forum. Definitely making this a forum, this would make sense. But what matters now is just seeing how flexible and powerful the theme system for Drupal. And it gives you a way as a developer and as a site builder to granular, aside from putting some permissions granularly, also come up with ways to properly display your content and be able to make your users, both for visitors and your administrators, have a better experience overall. Now, to wrap this up, this new theme is actually what will be the next theme in Drupal, probably around in the new version of Drupal coming in later this year. You may use this if you like because it's running with some modern tools for making animations or framework for doing UIs. You may use this, but for the interest of the recording, I'm just gonna go back to 7 because as you see, it's still experimental. Probably a number of things are not yet working properly. 7 has been here for probably more than 7 years. And it's been battle tested and for a lot of modules that are part of core. I'm gonna use that instead. Okay. Before we leave appearance, I just wanna take time to just give you a quick run through on if a content management lets you change what kind of theme runs on users versus administrators, can you also like do some quick styling on your theme? So the answer is yes. Some themes by default provide you of features like changing the color scheme. So here, the Bartik tool has some pre-made color sets. This hasn't changed for like since forever. I don't remember when was this changed, but you can just create your custom view here or custom color. You can see what will change here. You can change the color. Probably we need to change it into something that looks good for a bake shop now that we decided to make it a bake shop. Probably not plum, probably not ice. If I'm probably selling ice, I probably want this. Firehouse, does it look like something like that? But if I'm gonna try this as a base, probably an orangey look feel would be good for this. So maybe or golden, I don't know. So I'm just gonna just gonna do this for the sake of demo. I'm gonna save this. You can define also what to show in some toggle or sections here. You can show which logo. You can customize the logo here. I don't have a custom logo right now for Big Shop, but maybe during the break, I'll find a way to create a custom logo later. But for now, maybe I'll try to find a Drupal cut Manila logo. Maybe that will work. Here, I'm gonna go use this one. I'm gonna put this Drupal cut Manila logo. The bake shop that came out from Drupal camp. Okay. And I'm gonna save this. And Just to give a bit of a disclaimer, we will not be delving on theming in this morning session a lot. We will be focusing on theming a little bit later on. In this afternoon, we will have a longer section. If folks with you would stay with us on until later, we'd do more of that. But for now, we'll just do like a super basic a view of what is possible with the Spartic. Okay, so bear with us. We could do more beautiful stuff later, just like the demo mommy things. That's something that we will do if you have time later, and also during the theming section. Okay, so that didn't look good. I'm gonna change that later, but that didn't look appetizing, so I'm gonna change that later. Okay, so I'm gonna end with that. I'm gonna skip running structure and content because we will gonna do um, a section now that focuses on these two things here, which I defined earlier. We create menus, blocks, custom contents, and taxonomy and views. I'm gonna skip now structure and head back to content because they're tightly knit together. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna give a quick pause right now, just to probably have a drink and give you guys 2 minutes to play around with the field or the sections that I've shown, and to give you maybe a chance to find a question or two, maybe. So post your questions in chat box in Zoom. Once we get back after 2 minutes or 3 minutes, we'll be able to, maybe we can try to answer that. The next thing that we'll do is go with content and structure. We'll try to create finally a page and an article, and also figure out how to manage these pages using structure. Okay, so stay around and chat with you guys in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay, so anyone willing to share anything they found out with Drupal if they explored it, or anyone has any question about what they've seen so far? Okay, okay, it's fine. If there's not, if none, it's good. Um, I'll head back now to actually making stuff in Drupal. So we stopped at appearance and we left content and structure to run things with Drupal. I'll go ahead with showing you how to create content in Drupal. So in the website, you have seen that section about content. This is where you actually get all the available pieces of content in a single view. It could be an article, a page, all those events that we talked about earlier. So here, I'm gonna go back and refresh this. I'm gonna go to content. And now we're back to editing content in the default administration theme. Okay. If I create a I'm gonna try create an article first. Maybe I'm doing a blog, and since we're gonna do a bake shop, I probably want to build a blog that talks about how tasty our bread. So I don't know if some of you guys remember that anime that talks about bread. If you know, write down in chat what that anime is. So you probably know what I'm referencing here. Try our new bread that lets you change history. I don't know if someone knows this, what I'm trying to reference here. So, okay, thanks, Steph, for helping out here. Yep, that's right. I don't know if someone of you watched that. There's actually bread that changes history. So I've written down something here, a lorem ipsum text that says, try a new bread that changed history. There you go. So I'm gonna look for a really, really nice photo of bread online. I don't know if you guys use Pexels or Unsplash. So I don't know if you guys use that. Let's just find some nice stock photos of bread. So say delicious bread. Stripe bread here. I don't know if there's something here. If not, I'll just put any random photo. I'll find. So search. Let's see, we have bread here. Okay. So while that loads, that's not bread. That's burger. Here it is. Does this look like something that will change my future? I don't know. Okay. So I'm gonna find one photo here. Oops, no, I don't want that. Okay. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm gonna go ahead and add photos on my article. Maybe I'll just put the Drupal camp banner here for the meantime, or maybe this placeholder photo. I'm gonna add this here. I'm gonna add tags, maybe future bread, and amazing bread, and then field thing. So now, if you create content, it gives you a nice text editor here. In Drupal, we are using CK editor, and it lets you just write down content here and be able to set some nice tools to set your formatting. Okay, you can insert photos also inside your post using CK editor, and you can add images using the same way I've added images earlier. I'll probably choose a different photo now that that I have online. I probably should have searched for photos while we're on break. I'm gonna do that for the next break. So, but just imagine there's a photo of a bread. You can customize more how this is aligned. You can put it right, center, and there are other ways to format this, like adding some heading inside. So it's gonna put the new bread and add here. And while you're in there, you can actually still see the source of your file. It's basically just you creating HTML. Okay. And if you want to add like by hand HTML, you can definitely do so. But on by default, you can use the CK editor tool to be able to run a number of things. Now, you might be um, wondering if you try this and you want to maybe make you some columns, some divs in there. I'm gonna add a div maybe here for this section because I want to probably do something here like bread, right? So probably want to do that later on. But if I actually save or go back here, see it's gone. It's not a bug, but it's actually a feature where it protects the site for like putting some unwanted stuff. And that's defined here by the text format tool or option. So in Drupal, you can actually define what only available HTML fields available to run for your bloggers or for administrators or editors. So if you want to do something like that, add some actual HTML, you can actually do that. I'm going to click full HTML. And now I can probably add those sections. And if you also did that, you may have noticed that additional fields came out here in creating your content. Okay, you can now use this block layout tool where you can create what I was trying to do earlier. You can also now add tables now and other stuff. Now, while we're seeing this, let me just go back now with configuration that this is something that you can actually define in Drupal when you create content. There are more features in CK Editor. If you actually look for CK Editor online, Drupal uses that library to come up with really nice editing experiences. And you can actually define what you can have here. So here I have something to configure full HTML. So right now, the default are only those fields that you've seen earlier, right? What we have here, link, text, bulleted list, numbered list. But if you edit this, you can customize the experience that you can give your users by actually adding more here. So you can configure, you can add more like formatting things here. This is actually something that you want, right? Putting things in center. And this is familiar if you know what you want and need in Microsoft Word. And this is um, uh, how customizable Drupal is. Now, this may also feel like, why do I have to do this? Yep, but there's some additional modules out there where you can have this set by default. Right? That's just a quick way of showing you how you can create content in Drupal by default. So it's using CK Editor. You can use additional options for HTML using CK Editor and you can customize it. And once you're done with that, you just press save. And you should see that article coming into your Drupal site. So now you see the default setup of Drupal is actually showing you the latest articles in recent order, and that homepage got changed quickly. Now, something is amiss. Okay, you can see the URL here. It shows node. This is also what I meant earlier when we said it's about nodes. So by default, everything that you create is node, but probably you don't want to use that path for your visitors. You probably want to modify some that URL. So you can just quickly go ahead and go to URLs here and just define here what maybe what kind of article name you would like or to your path. Now I know that this is this doesn't really look good because it's super manual. But later on, when we go to the module section, there's actually a module that we will just turn on so that we can automatically do these path patterns or URL patterns. or if automated URLs, we would do something like that. But by default, creating pages and articles is something like that. Okay, what else do I need to add? As you can see here, my home page is just saying home. If I'm probably a bake shop, I want to create more pages like what our bake shop is about, and maybe our product, maybe a gallery of our product. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna use now instead basic page. So basic pages are static content, so you don't change that often. It's not really time bound or time sensitive, such as about us or profile. I'm gonna click this here, basic page, and what I'll do is create an about page. And if I forget, I'm gonna write this as about. I'm gonna go ahead and get some probably lorem ipsum text here, and that's it. Now, I said that I want this to show up in my navigation bar or menu bar here. From your content, you can actually define which menu your page would show up. So here, if you see menu settings, you can actually click and say that this is something to be part of a menu. And Drupal has a default navigation already created here. So main navigation. You can define if it's order, it should be go next after the home menu link. So I've added my text here now. I'm gonna press save. Static page doesn't have any featured image because that's like meant for articles and all that. But you can definitely add images here, just like what we did earlier. Maybe like a photo of your store or something. So you can definitely do that. Let's just add this nice graphic about Drupal camp. And I'm just gonna save that. When I select menu settings, provide menu link, that that adds our page about. Now to our menu. As you can see here, now menu is available, in our menu is updated, and that's becoming now part of your site. Okay. So content is here. You create pages, you use CK editor by default. You can configure CK editor to add more features to your page that you're working on. Probably can do a lot on just writing down sections, simple layouts, and putting some blocks in there. That's a good start on how to create your pages or articles. That would work on like pages like about us. Like that's a very simple page. We can talk more about like more complex layouts in a while. That's how you create pages in Drupal. Okay, so for our next activity, I'm just gonna give you 2 minutes to create an article in a site page in your sandbox. So if you have questions, you may have already done this yourself. So that's why I'm just giving a minute or two. If you have questions, this is the time to ask. You may have noticed me using dummy text, right? I'm actually using this Chrome plugin called Business Ipsum, or Corporate Ipsum, rather, sorry. So the text I'm actually adding is not lorem ipsum based, but actually corporate kind of text. So it's really nice. I suggest this if you're like me who does a lot of mockups. It's really useful. You can definitely use a bunch of lorem ipsum tools online. I think there's a Tagalog lorem ipsum tool out there. Not the Becky Ipsum. I think there's a Tagalog lorem ipsum out there, so you can try that out for fun. ph.lipsum, so that's the site. Or no, that's not the site. I'm just trying to Google it very quickly on the other side of the screen. Okay. So anyway, if you have questions, there you go, ph.lipsum. It looks like this. Let me show you. So it's in Tagalog. So if you want to make a Tagalog mock website, this is useful. Use ph lipsum. I don't know if there's a ph corporate lipsum or how that sounds, but this is gonna be useful for you guys. Okay. Okay. Go ahead and create those articles. A last minute for you guys. While you guys are running, I'm just gonna try and download a photo online. Just gonna find some photos. Okay, so I'm gonna stop with content now. Let's just take a look at our site. I'm gonna remove the logo because it really doesn't look nice. I think I wanna take out the logo now. I don't think I like it. I'm gonna remove it. Gonna go back to my Bardic settings. Or maybe I'll just use the default logo. Okay, so if you're done creating your post and article, I'm gonna go and talk about now structure. Okay, so here we are now talking about a bake shop, and obviously a bake shop is not just about articles. It's not just about pages. You want to be talking about bread. Okay, so the first thing you probably want to create for your site is a custom content type that's meant for your bread, right? So if you want to create a custom content type in Drupal, it's in its core, you'd be able to just go to structure, go to content type, and add a content type. And if you've seen me earlier with people adding fields, it's the same experience. It gives you a more detailed view of what you can add to Drupal. So I'm gonna go there now. I'm gonna go to structure this time. I'm gonna click this toggle to see content types here. Okay. And what I'll be showing here is add content type. I'm gonna close these other tabs here. So I'm gonna name this. Let's call this bread products, right? Because, or maybe not just bread, bake products. It's not just bread. Probably we have cakes, maybe. So we just call it products. We call it products. You can define it as bake or just maybe products, I guess. No, just call it products, right? You can actually decide if you like to define multiple content types. You could probably create a content type specifically for bread, content type specifically for cake, maybe. But in Drupal, you can probably create a more sensical or semantically correct structure like this is products, okay? So I'm gonna call this products, and then I'll change the name of the title instead of title, just like in Blocks. I'm gonna call this product name. I'm gonna change that field label now. So whenever I create a new product, it says, what's the product name? Okay. So I'm gonna call this all of what we sell or what we offer in our stores. I'm gonna add this, save and manage fields. And once I've done that, if I go back to add content, I'm not gonna touch fields now. You can see that the admin/content page, if I go to add content earlier, there is now a new entry called products as part of your application or your site. And if I click that, I now have here a nice form available. And if you're wondering, how did that happen? So Drupal, by default, abstracts all the logic that lets you create a database table, a set of database fields, and also create a form that you can edit into all in the UI. So you don't normally, if you probably create a custom application, you probably code your way in this, you'd probably come up with like another code for your view, your form, and your display. So when creating content type, you could see that you can actually define them all in the same UI. You don't have to you don't have to code your way into it. And thinking about what to add for products, probably what I want to add here is a field about photos. Okay, so I'm gonna pick here images. So product image, I'm gonna add product image. And in the product image, what I want to do is I don't want just one product image. I want maybe like a gallery even. So I'm gonna say maybe unlimited or maybe just a fixed amount, maybe up to 6 maybe. I'm gonna add here. And then I wanna add more. I'm gonna define if this is required here. I'm gonna save. I'm gonna skip this part where you can actually define like the maximum resolution and all that. But it's nice that Drupal allows us to define this for our fields so that you can control what kind of image and the size that it will show. It would let you speed up your site if you restrict the size, and it automatically restricts your users. You've seen me create a site and there's a default body field here, right? So I think I don't want that. Instead of body, probably I just want to add a description field. So body is like super long, probably just want a short version of it. So I'm gonna create an add field again, or I'm gonna create a field again, but this time I'm gonna add a text without summary. So I'm just gonna add text formatted long. The difference between the other text fields here is that in plain is just a text box. With formatted, you can use CK editor for editing this. And I'm just gonna call this product description. And continue. And the last field that I want to add with this is maybe a price field. Okay. Now, this is not meant yet for like sell, just coming up with a purchase button yet. But maybe if you want that like online orders, maybe you can do that using an e-commerce module. But all I want is to add a field that if I display in the site, someone would want to ask how much is that piece of product or bread or cake. You can see that. Okay, so I'm gonna add an integer field here, or maybe no, or maybe I can use a number using decimal. Okay, so you can see the price. Product price. Do that. Okay. And oops, I forgot this part. I clicked too fast. Okay, so now I'm done adding my fields. If I go back to that create form that I opened, I refresh this, and I now see an entirely new form. I have a product image field. I have my product name. I have my product description field, and a little bit down the product price. Now, I want you to pause a bit and see and imagine how powerful this feature is. This means that as a site builder, you can basically create a bunch of content that you could think of. As long as there's a field for it, you think of a field available for it, you should be able to do that. That's why folks are be able to create Drupal sites with really complex content structure, where they have more custom metadata, they have more fields to choose from, and that lets site builders be able to display them more easily, because they can put sections and divide things instead of just a plain old body of text, right? So instead of just having a very long text field, you can actually use some custom content types. It's really powerful, right? One more power that I really like with Drupal is the capability of creating custom content that actually relates to other content. So here, you can see there's a field called reference. And what this means is you can actually use a field that lets you relate to maybe an existing article or maybe an existing product, right? So maybe related products. So you can actually define if you want to pair this with maybe this pandesal is maybe good for this coffee. Maybe you sell that in your bake shop, or maybe this bread is good with this other bread, something like that. So I'm gonna put this field, let's say paired or related product. Let's call this create products. I'm gonna click this, and I'm gonna click, maybe just wanna have maybe just 2 related products, okay? And let me just pause a bit too to show you that in Drupal, you can actually relate so many items, so many things here, and be able to relate a number of options in Drupal. So I'm gonna save this now, and I will define that this is relating to other products too. So I click this. And if I save this, my form that I made earlier is now something that relates to other fields, or sorry, other products. So right now we can't add anything here because I don't have any products yet. So let's try and create one now. Okay. So product, let's just call this pandesal, and then I'll put a photo. Let's put entry here, and you're done. Okay, I just saw a message here that says some folks are not seeing our screen. Says here, is there a way to just share screen to see the leftmost portion of the screen? Here's what I'll do. I'll stop sharing and see if you can see my screen again properly. Okay. So I'm gonna try and share again my screen. Let me know if that's better. Is anyone else also not being able to see my screen properly? So thanks, June, for pointing it out. Anyone else not able to see my screen properly? It says here, is there a way to just share screen to the leftmost portion of the screen? I'm not exactly sure what how should I move. But if someone can speak out and as I move my screen, let me know if I'm doing it right. Right. So okay. So if not, I'll just put it in center. I'll just make everything in center, I guess, and at least I assume that this part is seen by everyone. Okay. Okay. So okay, good. Better now. See the left side of the screen. Give it up. Okay. So I'm gonna add an image too. What photo should I use? Maybe I'm gonna use this random photo I have here. I have the price here. It's let's say 14 pesos. I'm gonna say it. Now I'm gonna add one more, just for the sake of demonstration. And at this point, I'd like to, while I'm doing this, let also everyone, as you might have guessed, the next activity is for you to create your own custom content type. If you are already working on with something with your own site, please do so now so that you could start adding fields. This might really take some time. You could probably add some questions and comments now, and I'll be able to show you more as I go along and you can follow through. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and so I have now here my page called Pandesal page. I'm gonna add more. I'm gonna add one more. And what I'll add here is instead of Pandesal, I'll add let's say um, brownies. Wow, brownies. Okay, so I'm just gonna use another low quality photo here just for two. And then I have a price here, 24.50. And then now, since I have a Pandesal product here, I'll type Pandesal. I have here Pandesal. I can relate it now here and save. Now, why that matters is because this field now shows up properly also at the part of your page where it says it's related. So it's really nice if you want to create a page that connects your piece of content together, and you could really come up with better custom applications too with this. You can probably create, right now if you're doing something of a store, maybe you would think of like an online tool for managing products, or maybe something that's helpful for COVID, like a form or something. Maybe in your home, you need to come up with something like forms for your community or something like that. I know that in one student, they use Drupal to like create custom content types for managing donations or barangay applications or something. So it's really unlimited now. So maybe if you see this view now, you're happy with the display. Maybe you're happy with how the form looks like if I add a new form here. But the last part I'm gonna share for custom content type is that aside from just adding fields, you can actually customize the form itself and the display itself. You can change the order and the way your forms actually organized. So here you can see this like the order of fields that I have in this form. Okay, so first one is product name, product image, product description, and product price. Maybe I want to put product price up here and product description maybe at the bottom. So I can do that in form display view here. So I click on the content that we created. I have managed form display here. And you just go and look for the field that you want to edit. You just follow the order and just drag them here. put the product price maybe above price or above image, and maybe put this also above here. Maybe that's how I want it. Maybe entirely put image below. I'll say this, and that immediately reflects your form. This is for you thinking about how easy it is for your users to create content, so that maybe you want to put all the important fields up in the form first so that they won't forget it. Obviously, you can also define in the field section earlier if there are things that are required. So for me, I'd like to require images. You can see here it's required. And that's really helpful for managing your site there. However, maybe I want to this time configure how my product image also look like. As you can see, the order of the form just matches the form. It doesn't edit how the display is modified. This is where you go now with the display or view mode tool. And you can now reorder this the way you want. So maybe you want price up first and in the description above. And I really don't like this label here, this product image. I'm gonna change that, I'm gonna remove it. I'm just gonna tape inline. I want the product price to show up. It's called product price, so that it's just not a number. Can I put this inline? Same with product description and also with related products. I felt that the image was kind of big, so I'm gonna click this setting here. And if you have created a number of image styles, this one felt super big because I did upload a big photo. So I go to display and I'm just gonna change the look and feel based on the image that I created. You can create more image styles if you want. You can define also if an image has a link to something. Maybe you can click the content that you can zoom the photo a bit. I'm gonna press save. I'm gonna show this next thing about product. If you actually define a prefix here, maybe a peso sign in the fields, you can also show it here and define if it's hidden or not. And a lot of other tools. So the key here is that if you have created fields, Drupal also by default provides you some options to update how it looks like for its structure to be correct, so that it's more easier for you to style it much better. So I've saved that display now. So let's see what happened if I refresh this page and now I have a new view. So here you see the photo now automatically moves here because it's responsive. The product price is now in line. It doesn't show above the field, which looks better. I now have product description here. If I go to that other page that I created, which is brownies, it follows the same. So this is sort of like a template now for all the content type that you created. So manage form display manages how the form should look like for your users, for your editors. And manage display is for your visitors or viewers, or typically how you want to display it for your site. Okay, so super nice. It's really helpful. At this point, you probably see how organized the structure of your content, and it's easier for your designers or themers to change or probably figure out how it should look like. Okay, so that's creating custom content types. I'd probably spend 2 days to show a lot of possibilities with custom content types, but I think what's important is seeing those tabs there, being able to use that. I hope you were able to follow as well to modify the form layout and modify that content display. It's up to the imagination on how it can work for you. A little bit later, we will get back to this to come up with more um, tools and available fields, I guess you'll be able to see that. Okay, so let's now move to my next section, which is creating custom blocks. So blocks, if you remember the definition, these are things that you see around the site, maybe in the sidebar, maybe in the header, or maybe in the footer, okay? So to get to blocks and to understand blocks better, let's go check block layout. I'm gonna click block layout here. Let's stop creating content for now. And what I will do is show you this page showing a list of blocks. It tells you about something called about the header. It tells you something about called a region, right? And if reading this at first, it really doesn't make sense, to be honest, right? It 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 looks like it means something like site branding, main navigation. So maybe you would realize, that's probably something about my menu, right? So I mentioned earlier about regions, and to appreciate blocks more, I'm gonna show this demonstrate block regions link here. So if you have themes, if you created themes, you actually define in your template, in your site, what are the available regions where you can actually add content, okay? So as you can see here, I'm showing you the demonstration of Bartik, where how a Drupal site and its region using Bartik has available regions named as such. And this means these are available sections where you can just write uh, a block. You can add maybe a custom view there that points a list of um, articles and much more. So if I go back to that um, demonstration of block layout, I'm gonna save this view for a while. I can go back. So this means that header here is any block that would show up somewhere around here. So if I go to my view here, so this section here is probably where my header. I'm gonna put my blocks here if I wanna put something here. If I wanna go to my sidebar here, if I go to my region reference, this is called sidebar first. So if I go to block layout, do I have sidebar first here? Yes. As you can see here, there's a section called search and tools. And if I look at my view here, my page, there's search and tools. Okay. So blocks is something that we actually add in any part of your site, provided that it's an available region activated by your theme. By default, obviously, there's only one region, which is like the full vertical content of your page. But if you learn more about creating themes later, this gives you an idea that if you want to come up with a really flexible site, you come up with a really nice system of blocks and regions that is going to be useful and that's also responsive, that can be reviewed. So I'm going to change this view just now. I'm going to change the block layout just now. So what if I want to put something on the sidebar second, on the right side? Okay. So here, what I'll do is I'm going to put tools instead of sidebar first to sidebar second. And I save this. And as simple as that, if I refresh now my page, my view here changed and my tool section goes here. Okay. Maybe you want that, you want sidebar left, sidebar right. Maybe that works. I've seen this with some like a bunch of um, sites where they put advertisement on the left or right side. You could probably put some photos here. Okay. And if you were like me looking at the button beside the region name, there's a column here called place block. So Drupal offers a number of blocks pre-made by the developers. You can actually put fields here or blocks here that make sense. Like here, there's a recent comment view. There's also a recent content view. So I'm going to add that too. So I'm going to add recent content. Oops, sorry, I scrolled too much. I'm going to click recent content. And I can change the order of it. So what I want is search is on top, then recent content second, and then recent comments next. I'm going to save this. And I'll refresh the page. And you should see now, there should be a number of content that we created, which is the brownies, pandesal, in the article. It now shows here. If this is a blog, this is basically a list of everything that you've written down so far if you have a blog. And you can put it anywhere quite easily. Now, if I go to brownies, I would see the same recent content block. But I feel that this is actually not good. I don't want to see this because recent comments and recent content, I just want that to show to the home page. I don't want that to show up in my specific content view. I don't want that to happen, okay? So what I'll do is, okay, let me just refresh this for a moment. Guys, can you still hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah, my earpods just died. So much for battery life. Anyway, so what I want to do is take out this section here. Okay. And if you have been like me looking at these hovering my button here, there's also actually a button here to configure block. I'm gonna click that here. If I click this, it's the same way as clicking configure from the block layout menu. Okay. And I can define how much to show here. And there's a section here about visibilities. Okay. So what I want to do is only show this block on the home page. Okay. So here I can define that it will show in the home page. I can write that down here as mentioned in the list here. And I'm gonna save block. Right. You can also do it the other way. You can also display it on a specific page. So you can see it's now gone. If I go back to home page, it shows now correctly. You can also define that block to show up to only specific content type. You can see here, you can click that it would only show up on specific content type. So maybe I only want to show this on articles, but not on products, not on basic pages. So this is you creating blocks in your site. But what about me not finding the correct block that I want? So if I add this here in the second sidebar second, maybe I want to put here a commercial or a poster that I have about my store, about the bake shop, or maybe a featured image that's not available here. Can I create a custom block? So the answer is yes, obviously, because you can see this button, add custom block. It lets you create a custom block. You can name it. Let's say banner promo. And we can say we offer free futuristic cakes. Okay. Limited time only. See here for details, something like that. I'm gonna make this into a big ass heading. I'm gonna make this a quote, maybe. Oh no, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna save this. And that custom block is something also now that you can add to your site. Okay, I'm gonna select a region. I'm gonna put this in sidebar second, just like I planned to. So here, I now have only tools, and if I refresh this, it's now showing up that custom thing here. Now, I want this to show upstairs or up here before tool. So as you probably known earlier, you can add here. You can add photos, you can add anything here. You can add all sort of stuff. And imagine any piece of content that you can create. And at the same time, creating these custom content of blocks lets you build a custom block library. So what I created earlier called banner promo, if I define that to only show on maybe a specific part of my site, this becomes a usable block that maybe I could use somewhere else too. So you can create multiple custom blocks and just reuse it with the combination of visibility options, region layout sections, and probably much more tools if you had some custom modules to add to make it this more nice and super. And just recently, if you have seen me create custom content types, there's also a thing now called custom block types, where that original block we created earlier, this is just a text field, right? It is a text field. I don't probably want just a text field. You probably want a block that probably contains a picture and also a section. So I'm gonna call this hero image or hero description, maybe something like that, and a featured image and description block. Okay. And what this will do is you now can create and manage fields from here, same way with custom blocks earlier, define the form, you can add an image here, and that lets you be able to come up with a really, really nice content structure. Reusable blocks, blocks that has custom metadata fields that you can reuse and properly organize in your site. And with the power of managing form fields, you can also define that. This is super easy because your block is just a field and an image, so probably don't want to modify that setting anymore for forms, but probably you want to come up with something with your field settings, or rather with your display settings, and maybe put the image on top, or maybe put the photo side by side. Remove those tables too, just like we've seen earlier. And whatever you've done with custom content types earlier, you'd be able to do it here. I'm gonna hide this image. I'm gonna use this with maybe a super small one or maybe a medium one, and save. So how will I use that? If I go back to my block layout, I go to placing a block in my sidebar second. I'll add a custom block. And this time you now have an option to select what kind of custom block you're creating. You'll probably be able to create in the future hero images, landing sections, those nice things like a photo on the left side and the right side. These are things that probably make sense in your design, and is useful for someone who wants to create a repeatable set of sections for a site. And it's up to your imagination how much you'd like to create. Okay, so it's really nice. You can create multiple fields, really nice to use. So promo, hero, and hopefully by now you also try to start to create this. As you might have guessed too, the activity next is try to create a block of your own, add and modify also, and reuse the block. So the next activity is to maybe do also this the same way as I was doing it. You can create maybe just a field only section. Maybe you can just create something only for images. Maybe you can create video fields that you can use. So that's really nice. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna pause here while I'm running this. If you have questions or if you are if you're not seeing my screen again or something, you can go ask me now. And hopefully at this point, some of you guys also go ahead and work with your sandbox, create articles, create reviews and all that. Oh, sorry, create custom block and all that. Okay, a question here from Steph. Can you change the template layout depending on the page and not apply to all pages? I'm not going to answer it for now because there's a section for that a little bit after the next topic. Or I'm not going to show it, I mean, but yes, it's possible to come up with a template layout that's specific to a page, not applying to all pages. So we can actually do that. Okay, so, okay. Oh, actually, it's next. It's the next section. The question from Steph is actually the next section. Okay, but before we go to there, I'm gonna give you another 2 minutes to just go here and get all your questions lined up here. These are good questions, layout, fields are useful. If no questions, I assume you understand everything, I guess. Maybe that's a sign of I'm doing something good. But just write down here. 2 minutes. If you have some questions, just get something to drink. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Okay, I'm back. I don't know if someone asked something, I missed it or something because I'm no longer using a wireless earphone. um, okay, I have a new question here. Steph, thank you. So one more question. Is there a validation of fields in the form? For example, image field to be required or optional? So yes, and actually that's like the only validation available here because you want to define if a certain field is actually required or not. So let me go back and actually show that you actually define that on the field setting. So anywhere, as long as it's a field, there's always a checkbox that says, is it required? Okay, so if it's not checked, it's obviously optional. There's some extra tools out there where you can actually um, add more kind of validation, even things like inline formatters, things like that. But for that question of validation of fields, yes, it is possible. In Drupal core, the default available one is the required or optional. That's the first available one. Depending on the field, there may be extra option that's available. So I'm going to show this now. I'm now here on an edit field. Where is that required field option? It's here. It's not that big, not showing up, but it's here. It's required field. If you check it, it will not complete if it's not used on a form. Let's just a minute. I think there's some other fields for validation too, like requiring like alternative text. I think that's a requirement now for images. and all those other stuff. Okay, thank you for the question. And we're now going to our segue. I hope you were able to do your blocks and custom blocks. I have here a nice activity called create custom loops, custom lists or tables. I think I've removed the slide about this, but or I overwritten it with the copy of it. But what I'm gonna do is, as you can see, I have a page where all my articles are actually lining up. It shows up all my articles. But here, I now see also my um, brownies by something, but these are not articles. These are my product page. What if I want to create a custom view or a loop that only shows my articles and the other one only shows my products, right? Is that possible in Drupal? And obviously the answer is yes. In structure, we have this thing called views. And in views, you can actually define sort of an abstracted kind of query to the database. So you've defined all your fields, you've created all your content type, and all you want to do next is just use your content type and come up with custom views of pages, of blocks, or anywhere else in your page. So here you might have seen that you remember this a recent content thing. That's actually a view, and it's built available or by default by Drupal. So what if I want to create a similar view where it's all about content, but I'm just gonna filter it with just products that I have or whatever content that I've created. So that's views. I'm gonna click add view here, and I want to create a view about products. Okay, so I'm gonna call this products page. I'm gonna call this products page for now. I'm gonna call the view setting that it will show content. And you can see here in Drupal, you can actually call any kind of thing inside in Drupal, not just content. As long as you create it inside Drupal, it's available for creating a custom view or loop. Now, by default, it's all articles, all basic pages, and all products. This is the part where you can filter what you want to show. So you have products, and you can even define something like which are sorted. Okay, so I'm gonna go newest first and show it in a descending manner. And what I want is to create a page and also a block, just to save us time on defining this. Okay, so you now know what product or what are blocks. You obviously know what a page is, so I'm gonna save this now. And what this does, if I save it, is Drupal creates you an automated page and automated blocks that lets you see what kind of products only in that view. So this view here, let me just zoom out a bit so you would appreciate more this tool. So views lets you define how your page looks like, how or what fields should show up, and all the other things that probably useful on what kind of display you want to show. So there's now a products dash page according to this view. So if I visit my page now, is it available? Products dash page. The answer is yes. This is now a page that, as you can see, only shows products. Okay. Now, what's more better is what if I don't like how this looks like. I probably want to see this like in a gallery kind of view. So I'm gonna change this in format. Right now, I just have an unformatted list. Drupal offers a first set of available format. Maybe I want to use grid for now. So maybe let me make a gallery-like thing. And I want to make, let's say, 2x2 column, automatic with all these settings. And while you are making your view, you can actually have a preview about how it would look like. And this won't apply yet here until you've saved your view. So if I refresh this, nothing really changed here. And this actually saves this first. And then if I save that, here you now have a sort of a grid. But this doesn't look like anything out of a gallery yet. This just looks like side-by-side product list. So I'm gonna change that. I wanna make this into actually showing photos. So right now it's showing content. And at the moment it shows actually content in a form of a teaser. So if I click this, if I change this, there's actually a number of options here. And if you remember, as we were editing our content type earlier, this was actually what you were defining in the form display. So if I go back to content types, just to go back a little bit, how did I get that? If I go to manage display, this thing here that the view uses is actually something that you configured earlier. If you actually define how this looks like here, this is actually going to happen in the view as well. And it just so happened that there's already a pre-made thing called teaser that in the teaser view, it doesn't show your image, right? So it's here, it's so disabled. So I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna show product image now here in your consent. I'm gonna change it like this. Maybe put here the just the image, nothing else. So if I go back to my view, if I would wanted it to show as a teaser, my photos are now showing up. The links are here. It follows the same order of my display. And it's really nice to see how connected Drupal together of piecing your content. You can define as well the image view. You may want this to be a gallery, so you might want to have a smaller image, maybe a thumbnail. I'm gonna update this here. And if I now go to that page, all that setting that you created are pieced together, showing to that final output that shows your view here. Okay. Now, I'm gonna put this a little bit higher, just a little bit higher. What if I just want to show only the images? I don't wanna see this title. I don't wanna see this submitted by thing here and the read more links. Unfortunately, you can't like hide everything here. If you hide links here, you just see the title. In views, you can actually define what fields you can actually show in your view. Instead of changing the display mode here, you can change the show format into fields, okay? And this gives you, as a developer, a more controlled and granular set of things, okay? So by default, Drupal says, I'm gonna show title. As you can see, everything's gone. The title is what's left, right? If I'm gonna save this, the good thing though is that I achieved removing everything else that's submitted by thing here, but it's just the title. I don't want that. I want the image. So what you will do is you can use the field section here so that you can click add and find whatever field that you want to add in your view. So there's a search here. I want to search for an image. So here it shows the product image. And I would probably now remove the title because I don't want it here. So I'm gonna click that button to rearrange. I'm gonna remove it, or maybe I'm gonna put it at the bottom, maybe to show that's what it's called. I'm gonna click apply displays. And like that, we now have an entirely different view, okay? I'm gonna save this. And if you are going to see my Pantheon site products page, as quick as that, I was able to define, create a custom page with a dynamic loop using the content that you created earlier, and even define specific fields that you want to show. This is super powerful, and this is probably the only reason or one of the main reasons why I use Drupal in the first place. It's available in core. It's something that probably lets you avoid a bunch of coding. And if you would actually take a look more with what's actually happening here, this is actually you creating a custom query in your database of whatever thing that you need to create. So I'm just gonna show here for appreciation a setting that shows you the SQL query that's happening. So I'm gonna save this here. And I'm gonna go back to that view page that we were creating earlier. As someone who wants to create a page, I don't want to like meddle with coding my way on making this happen. But as you can see, as you keep on dragging, clicking fields here, Drupal abstracted how you can actually build that. And you don't have to actually see it, you just have to see it for yourself in the preview and just write down the fields as you need. Super powerful. You can actually even use multiple views in this case. So you remember that I created blocks earlier? Right now I'm editing the page. With the same filter that I've already created, I can go to that other page or that other view mode called block, where I can probably change the way it looks. So you can see here it's entirely different. It has for unformatted list. Maybe I want it that way. I'll let it be. And if I want to show it here in the sidebar, the same way you saw earlier me creating block layouts, the same way. Okay? So super powerful, that's views. And probably if earlier blocks and content would take a day, this is probably like a month worth of blabbing. I will never stop with everything that you can do. Probably just a bonus before we leave. If you are maybe creating a page that's useful for maybe like a reference price list or something, maybe instead of grid, you use a table, right? There's a table view here. And maybe what I want to add here instead of just a photo, I'll come up with a price field instead. Okay. So if I use that, and you can see here, I now have a photo and a field and a product price. There's labels inside here. I'm gonna change this image to be super small, so it doesn't look bad on the table. So here's now a table, right? I'm gonna press save. I'm gonna press um, refresh, and now my Drupal page is, instead of just a gallery, it's now actually a price list page. Okay. Super nice. Probably 1 month more just for about tables. So probably there are a lot of questions coming in. So this is probably the next 2 minutes to give your question before the last part I'm gonna show, which is layout builder. This is gonna be I think useful. Question here: history tracking for these view or block changes. This is useful for blaming, troubleshooting. Yeah, that's a good question. So is there a way to? This is something called revisions, right? So is this something available for Drupal? So yes, there is revisions for block. Because as you can see here, there's a toggle about create new revision. So if you check, if I put a checkbox here, if you are a person like working on Git, this is like the equivalent of your Git commit message. So I added a new photo. So if I actually did a new photo, I'm gonna save it. Next time, if you go to the content revisions view, that's found in the block layout view, you can now have a nice uh, view about all the changes. This is available for every single view or every single content type and block. There's a tab called revisions where you can quickly see that. This one has there's only one revision. So if you wanna go there and, oops, that's wrong, you wanna maybe revert to it, you can do that. Okay, so block changes, history tracking, revisions is the answer for that. Okay, anything else? Okay, I know there may be some questions about views, maybe a lot. Maybe you can park it, or maybe you can imagine more if you have more questions later. Last minute for testing, or last 45 seconds rather, before I go to that question from Steph earlier, which is custom layout. Okay, so the final thing to share with the Quickstart is what I call the layout builder. So you've seen me create views, you've seen me create regions with your themes, but is it possible to just, come up with your own custom layout for any page? The answer is yes. And you do that with this feature called Layout Builder. Layout Builder is actually a module that we need to activate. It's not yet activated at the moment, okay? So you can see here I have a somewhere here called Layout Builder, okay? I'm gonna set this up here. Maybe I'll try to just enable that. I'm gonna save this, and it requires some modules to you. So I'm gonna accept that. Now, at this point, what happens is that you now have a new setting across all your content types to what we call manage layout using Layout Builder. So I'll go to my content type products, and to basic page. I'm gonna go to manage display. And earlier, you may have not seen this, but there's now a toggle here called Layout Builder, okay? So it's not here earlier. Instead, when I enabled that module, it's now here. Now, there's also an option that if you click Use Layout Builder to allow each content item to have its own layout customized. Okay, so this answers the question earlier if we can come up with a template that's used or reused by a single content type. This time there's an option for a single page that actually customizable. So I'm gonna save this. And what happens here is your view about managing display changes. That draggable view is gone. I now have what I call a manage layout button here. So I'm gonna click this and let's see how it looks like. What it gives you is a nice, it gives you this nice editing view to add what we call sections and also blocks, okay? So if you create a page, for example, here, I'm gonna add section here. You can define if your page is like a 2-column, 3-column, 4-column. I'm gonna create maybe a 2-column page. I'm gonna define maybe if it's like a left T kind of image, media text thing. And then I can add blocks here. And the blocks here is not just limited to all the blocks that we have. Drupal recognizes all the fields that you have actually added in your template or in your content type available. So as you can see here, there's a section called content fields. So there's the body field, there's the user field, the title field. So you can now customize. So this means you can put your fields anywhere now with any custom layout. I can put custom blocks anywhere. And for me, what's really powerful is put even the views that you created earlier anywhere on your page. So imagine earlier I had this view, right? This is only a single page. But now I'm gonna put this page or in this block inside this page that I'm creating or inside this template I'm creating, okay? So let's try to make sense of this by actually creating a new page or an individual page. I'm gonna discard this since I activated basic page. Since basic pages are something that you could probably do random layouts or different layouts. It really fits that you can create single pages with separate view. So I'm gonna do this from the start. I'm gonna create a new page. I'm gonna call this products page, right? Just a products page, not products dash page, but products only. So I'm gonna call this products. This is gonna be found in the menu. This is gonna be found right after about. So I'm gonna maybe put it like 3 here. And I'm just gonna save it. I don't need to put anything here. Okay. And to go to an individual page's layout, a new tab is found. You can see here, layout. I'm gonna click this. And that screen that you saw earlier, this means now that this specific page has its own layout. And it says here, you are editing the layout for this basic page content item. So if you want to change everything, which to avoid the confusion that you are maybe actually changing a template, maybe you will want to create a custom product template later on using Layout Builder. What's good with this is that aside from just the visualization of the fields, you can really create, you can really harness all those custom pages, custom blocks that you created earlier, and be able to come out something really useful. So what I will do now here is create a section that puts a table on the left side, and then on the right side, maybe something else. Okay, so I'm gonna do column. I'm gonna put 67, 37, or 33 rather. I'm gonna add a block. I'm gonna add that view that we figured out earlier, okay? And then remember we created a promo hero banner? Instead of putting it in the region earlier, I wanna put it here specifically on that page. So maybe I can remove that in the whole page because I wanna show it only here. I'm gonna put here, where's that? There you go, banner promo. I can still add text here. Oops, sorry, I click, click banner promo, sorry. And then add block. I forgot to press add block. And then I can add custom blocks as well directly from Layout Builder. You can see here, there's create custom block here. It adds to that library. It asks you what kind of custom block. I'm gonna go for basic block and just a section or a title here. So test or test this, I'm gonna add block. And I'm gonna save layout here. Okay, I'm happy with that. Just a few seconds of running that. And that's it. I was able to see here the custom block version of that view here. So remember the view that we were editing earlier, the block view is not yet in table mode. So if I wanna put the block here inside the view, then I just edit the table view earlier. So I'm gonna change this into table, apply this display. And now, after doing this, you just successfully created a page within a page, if you could say that, combining the power of everything that you've created so far, custom content types, custom blocks, views, and finally, and ultimately, piecing them together using the Layout Builder. So let's see if it's working. I'll refresh this page. So the slash product page that I have added in the menu is now a page that has a sort of like a, not really a dashboard, but a layouted page. It's supposed to be responsive depending on your theme. So it's gonna look good. And you're done, okay? That's the Layout Builder. You can do this to any piece of content. You can create a page, a block using Layout Builder. You can activate Layout Builder to any part of Drupal. And that's super powerful because you can visually see this configuration. You can come up with a nice gallery view that you customize the layout of the gallery cards, maybe, and so many other things. Okay, wow. So that's so I know we are gonna have lunch, and usually it's really a working lunch with Drupal camps. So this is gonna really take time, layout builder and piecing all your things together. So for lunch, I'm suggesting that if you're really gonna have lunch, have lunch. And if you're gonna finish early, maybe you can spend time to do the next activity, which is gonna be create something using the layout builder, create the content type with a specific layout, and also a page that has a content specific layout. We already have basic page, maybe you have a custom product page like I did and make a content type specific layout there. And let's see what you can do and come up with some stuff that you can easily theme later on. Okay. To just wrap up, there are really more features to show in Drupal core that doesn't fit in a single morning. We could probably have a longer period in time. If you're gonna show or gonna follow through with the team building section, we will have a bit of continuation a little bit later. But for now, I'm just gonna show you that if you wanna add more feature, you can just really go to Drupal.org. You're gonna do something that more expansive and more really useful. And in the community, there are a bunch of people who actually created and grouped together a bunch of modules that already make sense. So just like here, I'm showing you photos of a bunch of Drupal, what we call distributions, where they have already pieced together a bunch of modules, activated a bunch of modules, and also created a bunch of themes that make sense to a specific use case, like creating a shopping cart website, like a government website, a documentation website, or even a social media platform, or even a church. There's a lot of this in Drupal. And I'm really excited for everyone here who's new, now that you have learned Drupal, to join the community and maybe find some new skills, and maybe not just skills, tools that could make things easier. I'm excited to see folks to come up with new projects with Drupal. And if you have any questions, the community is open, especially here in the Philippines, in Manila. We have a group where you can join in Facebook, the Philippine Drupal users group. You can also use the Slack that we've shared. We're always there, almost. And hopefully we can entice you on coming up with new stuff. And speaking of new stuff, to wrap this up, Drupal 9 is going to be released in June 3. It's going to be super nice because there's a bunch of new features like new themes. It's going to be super helpful. And what's really good about Drupal is it's going to be an upgrade to a really more stable platform. Before, for those who were using Drupal 7, it was a pain for upgrading. In Drupal 9, the last Drupal version, which is 8.9, is basically Drupal 9. That's how it's going to happen. There's no difference. It's just it's just a minor set of changes like deprecating code and all that. So there's really good future for us here in Drupal. So I want to say Drupal really improved immensely for the past few years. This is now the time to test anyone or come up with something with Drupal. Probably 4 years ago, I'm really hesitant to say, if you're a newbie, okay, maybe I can teach you this part first. But now if you're a newbie, you can really go ahead and start with Drupal. Unlike a few years ago, it's really the time to go ahead. The future is clear. We really see that in the last study from our community that we are now focusing on ease of use after coming up with a really, really stable platform of making and a really stable framework, a really robust framework to come up with something. And for us, success for the community is really coming up with new things easier, even for beginners. And you'll be able to deploy in record time. So that's what we want. And if you think that me blabbing in 3 hours and come up with something to show like this, maybe if I won't finish talking and I was just coming up with a baking website, um, I'll probably come up with something nice already in 3 hours, maybe, maybe not. I hope that gives you an idea that, wow, this is something really useful. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone who joined this morning. We will have another session for later. I'd like to thank everyone here. You can now have your lunch. You can, I'm gonna turn off screen sharing, but I'm gonna leave the room open for those who want to just add the questions. If you want to put in your questions, I'm gonna take a look at it and maybe come up with a continuation of the session earlier. If you want to stick around, the next session is about theming. And if we now have a big shop, right, we will come up with a theme maybe appropriate to a big shop. So that's what we'll do. So if you want to see that, get back later around 1:06, and let's try to do that together. Okay, that's it. Thanks everyone. See you later for those who will be joining. Thanks everyone.